Hey, it's me, Brooks. Welcome to Heal This. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back because this is the second half of a to be continued first half of Tammy and I. And last time we were talking about our adventures in Alaska and being an ex-Mormon and also more self-discovery. So in this one, we pick up where both of us have moved out of Alaska. I lived there for 15 years and Tammy lived there for a little less. I don't know for sure exactly how long she was there, but she moved to Wyoming and I moved first to Arizona, parts of California, parts of Nevada, back to Arizona, and eventually to Tennessee. So we pick up there and we also start to talk about a lot of other things that happen at this point in our life. This is a really big episode. This is one of my most favorite episodes and definitely the most favorite episode that Tammy and I do together. Um, so at this point, when we start the episode, we haven't seen each other in the storyline for years. And my mom is really sick, and I am questioning the church, whether I believe it's true anymore and whether I want to stay in it or not, and how I'm going to leave and what's that going to look like. I'm also very postpartum. I've had baby number 4, dealing with a lot of loss and grief. And we go really deep into a lot of grief. Also, there's a point where Tammy and I don't talk for a pretty long time. Our silence kind of is interesting because the lives that we're living are very parallel, except we don't know really what's going on in each other's lives and why did it come to that and what happens. Also, really breaking away from the church and what does that look like for both of us, and all of the woo-woo stuff that starts to come into our lives and more self-discovery and self-love. I just hope that you'll listen to it. It's a pretty long episode. Maybe break it up into chunks if that works for you. But I couldn't find a way to stop it, to make it shorter into more episodes because it's just really good and it really rolls into the next thing. So I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you will continue to heal this. And I hope to see you soon. And we see each other, and again, to bring it back to energy, our energy is reading each other, and we're like, it feels weird. It
Something's
feels really
off.
weird. Something's off, something's not right. And I'm just like, and I think one of the things that we discussed later was that you drove all that way, I came all that way, and we didn't really get to spend any time together. And it
Mhm.
was because, my time was not mine.
Right.
I was not, I didn't get to really say, I'm going to go see my friend. It was like, that was not an option for
We
me.
were just
And
squeezing it in between the other obligations that you had.
yeah. And so we leave that situation. And then you were kind of like, I'm going to come see you. And, you come out to see me. And
Yeah.
again, for me, that was all a blur because at that point, my mom's really, really sick. So you came out to visit. It's kind of all of a blur, but we were able to visit, but not enough. Like tracking me at that point was really difficult.
Well,
We had so much
part of
going
it, let
on.
me just say this part.
Yeah.
You had so much going on, but you had started down a path
Oh,
of questioning and not being so active in the church, and you didn't know where I was at with it. And so,
mm-hmm.
because we've talked about this part, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time, I'm still active in the church, and it was like you were feeling me out in a way to see, like, is she going to judge me? Is she still going to be my friend?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't want that negativity if she doesn't agree with what I'm doing, so I'm just not going to say anything. And
Mm-hmm.
that was part of what was leading to some of the weirdness.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
go ahead.
Yeah, because I was just really guarded. I mean, my mom she was dying, and then the 3 other kids were just really busy with big things going on in their lives, and I had started questioning the church, and I had started to, you know I started to just wonder if this was something that I, you know wanted to do. And
Mhm.
I was just really confused as to how I could continually be in the situation that I was in when I was doing all the things right. Like
Yeah.
according to the Mormon Church,
Right.
I was attending all my meetings. I had tons of callings. I was going to the temple. I was, doing all the mom things. I was paying tithing. I was whatever, right? Like I was dressing modestly and being obedient to my husband and trying so hard to make it all right, but it was also just awful. It was feeling awful all the time, every day. And then my mom was getting sicker, and I would have figured out that I was going to have baby number 4 at that point after you
Mhm.
left, and then um so we have the little guy, and she's still alive, but she's extremely sick. She comes and spends like 6 weeks with us, and helps me a ton. And then very shortly after that is when she passes away. And I remember after she passed away and just feeling so not seen or not heard or not understood at church. Like it was just, I remember just feeling like from about up here down to my belly button, feeling like there was a massive hole in
Yeah.
my whole being, and just having to be a mom of 4 kids, just being, postpartum, all that stuff. We were moving a ton. I mean, we moved so much, and just had this massive loss. And, I would go to church and nobody could see it. Nobody would say anything or help me. And I'm doing all this by myself. My husband's not coming. He's not doing anything in the church. And I'm just so confused by how people react. And then I remember talking to you, and this is before a lot of stuff starts to get really heavy with you. And I remember talking to you, and I remember I was pushing my little baby in a stroller, and you were talking about one of your oldest kids having, caused, there was something at school that happened. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I just can't even do it. Like I don't even have space for you. Like I couldn't, like I was breaking, like it was just so
Yeah.
bad. And I was like, I just don't even know how I'm functioning, honestly. And it was like, I couldn't hear one more thing from another person, even the smallest thing. And I can't remember if I've ever told you this, but I remember one of the ladies from church was like, she's my visiting teacher, and she's like wanting to take me out and get lunch so we could visit, cause that's your duty. And we go, and I mean, I'm just like, like, it's not good. I said, how are you doing? And she said, oh, we just had this weekend. It was just so bad. And of course I'm like, oh, so bad. What happened? Oh, there were weevils in our pantry. We had to throw everything away. And I'm like, I wanted to throw the drink in her face. I was like, my at that point both of my parents had passed away, and I'm still, postpartum. I'm like, he's barely 6 months old. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, you have no idea the shit pile that just fell into my lap as the oldest child, of 2 parents that passed away, living in a crazy, not good marriage. Children, older kids are doing so many things, caring for this baby, trying to keep this baby alive, nursing, like the whole thing. And I'm just like, you had weevils? I'll take your weevils. You know, I was just so upset about it. And then I think it was kind of then when I broke.
Yeah.
I broke a little bit. I was just kind of like, wow. And then going to church was like torture, just pure torture. Families were forever. And I'm like,
Mm. Not mine.
no, no, that's not going to happen. And also, like, I needed help. I needed help. And I even went to the bishop and told him, I am struggling. All this stuff does not make sense to me anymore. Um, No, I just, and don't tell me that they're in a good place. I know they're in a good place. I am not in a good place. That's what I'm
Right.
trying to say. And it was like, I remember even, and don't want to call out names, but someone who was very close to me, taking me to lunch and saying, men are that they might find joy. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? I am finding joy. I'm hurting. I'm sad. I'm grieving. I'm mourning. And I have every single right to feel that way. And yet it was like, I shouldn't be,
You
you
should
know,
just get on with it.
get over this, right? Like you
Mhm.
can do their work in a year. I remember that was like a big thing. I'm like, oh, so I can go to the temple and be baptized for them and do all this stuff because that's what, Mormons believe. I'm like, that will never bring them back to me in this life. And now I am trying to figure out how to live without them. That's what I was doing. Like I totally believe they're in a better place. I totally know I'm going to see them again, but like, I think that is definitely a big oops on the part of a lot of people is that they forget, yeah, they're still in pain. They're still struggling when you lose someone.
Right.
It doesn't just go away.
Well, and there's not a linear path to mourning and learning to live with grief. It visits us at different times for different reasons with different relationships that we have. But every time we experience a loss, we can also experience grief. And it's an emotion that you have to learn to live with because it's going to show up out of the blue randomly,
Yeah.
or it's going to be there for an extended period of time. And, everybody does it differently. Everybody experiences it differently, but it doesn't just go away. And I think that's
Yeah.
one of the myths that's so annoying about grief is that somehow you're going to experience this major loss and 3 days later you're supposed to be back at work and back to your duties and doing whatever normal life things you were doing before. But the problem is life isn't the same anymore. It's been
Right.
redefined now because the you that you knew as being part of these people who are no longer here, you don't know how you're supposed to continue to function and they're not.
Right.
Right. And what does that mean, and how do I go about, and the just all of it, having all of this sadness, deep loss and mourning, and also having to take care of your kids and looking at their accomplishments and the things that they're doing and reasons that you have to be happy, and
Mm-hmm.
how those things are happening simultaneously and it doesn't make sense and you don't know which one to pick.
Mm-hmm. It's both.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know that because we don't spend enough time talking about it. Right. We're
Right.
just like you said, for you went into survival mode at that point in time. And I remember thinking about the conversation that we had before our silence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot the same of how I'm feeling here listening to you recount it. It brought up this emotion of empathy because I completely understood, but I couldn't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew that I'm like, well, I'm here if you need me. Right. Like, I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. But it was hard to do. It's like sending your kid off to college, right? Like, they're
Yeah.
going to do this thing, but you're not going to be there with them for the experience. And you hope they come back and want to tell you about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember first of all, I want to say something about, I heard something not too long ago and I wish I could remember where it was from, but I'm always listening to something. But she said, the thing about grief is once it enters your life, it never leaves.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that's accurate. It's like we invite it to sit at the table with us. And sometimes it's got our full attention, and other times it's just sitting right next to us, and we need to learn how to live with it. And that becomes our new normal, because whenever you've lost someone and you have deep grieving happening in your life, if someone is in your life every single day, you will miss them being in your life.
And there's no way
And
not to.
yeah, and there's no one that replaces one person. That's one of the things I learned, is that it takes multiple people to fill the space that is empty, because, you know, we need a cheerleader, we need a support group, we need people to love us unconditionally. And so you might be just going along totally fine, and then you'll hear a song, or a fragrance or a smell or something, and then that's it. Like, they're back, that pain is back, and it's okay to just process it, and to grieve the loss, and to say, I still miss you, but I'm doing it. I'm living, because you're not, right? Like, you're not here. I'm gonna live, and celebrate you through my living. So anyway, I thought of that. But um yeah, I remember when things got really hard for you, that's when I was like, I'm sorry, but I don't think we had a conversation about it, but I just was like, I can't do it.
We did. We
Yeah.
did have a conversation about it, because so my ex-husband um, had a health diagnosis that changed everything for us, and it was really, really hard. And we were given a terminal diagnosis and thought that he was going to pass away very quickly. That didn't happen, but we worked for years through treatment and recovery, and back and forth of a lot of things. But it changed us, it changed me,
Mhm.
because he and I literally had to swap roles in our marriage, in our
Right.
family, and I had to be the breadwinner, and I had to
Right.
do all of the things.
Well,
And
and
I started,
you were
and
exhausted of telling people, keeping people up to date on what was happening, because there were so many people that wanted to know, like, how is he? How are you?
yeah,
And so it became exhausting to express all of that. And I remember thinking, like, I just don't even know if I can know.
right. Well, and to cope at that point in time, because there was so much, I started writing a blog,
Hmm.
and I started writing about it. And you and I had talked about it or whatever, and because we were still talking a little bit here and there. But I remember this conversation. The only reason I remember it is because I was sitting at the public library. I had to take the kids for something or be there for work. And it was a summer day, and I'm sitting outside in the sunshine, and you were like, it was something to the effect of, this is too much for me. I have so much going on with my own stuff. I can't do this right now. And honestly, if I'm being 1,000% honest, if it had been anybody else, that would have been the end of our friendship,
Hmm.
because I was also going through this really major thing.
Right.
And here I was having my person, who's always been my person, say, I can't do this with you.
Hmm.
And it was almost like the split second thing. And this is the reason why I remember looking at the trees, and there was a breeze, because it's Wyoming, the wind always blows here. And it was summertime, and I thought, this is just a season, and it's okay. And whatever, right? Like, you, for whatever reason, you need to be isolated and on your own, and when you're ready, you'll come back. And that's just what I thought. I mean, our conversation was pretty brief, but I processed it long after that. It was just like, nope, can't do this right now. And that was pretty much it. But for me, on the back end of it, you and I have had a lot of firsts in relationship, and this was another one, because I knew that for anybody else that would have been the end of the relationship, but I knew, because it was you and just where we were in the world, that wasn't going to be it, that it was just a season.
Yeah. And it was
And
a
it was
really long time
hard.
that we didn't talk. Yeah. And there was so much, it was awful. Cause I know, like, when I did start talking to you again, it was like, it hadn't gotten better.
No, it had only
It
gotten worse.
had only gotten worse. Um, in fact, it was just at a really bad time. In fact, that's why thought it was so incredible that you came back into my life at a time where I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, like, uh, I didn't really have friends here in Tennessee. We lived in Arizona. Parents pass away. We had come out here for a visit just to check it out. We'd never been here before. We came, and it was just gorgeous and beautiful, and we loved it. And all of the things that we were looking for were here. And so we came here, and moved across the country, and then settled in. And so at that point, I would have been close to 40. Had 4 kids. My youngest was almost 2. So that would have been 2014. That's what we kind of figured. Yeah, because we're going on 11 years now. So yeah, we get here, and I had, not too long after I got here, I had a medical issue that, I had been if you follow the story, that one of the reasons why I joined the Mormon Church was because I valued my health so much that I was willing to not, drink, smoke, do any kind of recreational drugs. I was like running mini triathlons. I was so active and very invested in my health. And the reason why I did all of that is because I had watched the people that I loved so much not do that, not treat their bodies well, and have very adverse effects on them, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
having strokes and heart attacks and dying very young. And so, it was just motivation for me to just keep doing that. It was also pretty much one of the only things I could control in my life
Right.
was, what I could eat, and, to some degree, and how I could feel in my body. And after having the 4 kids, and all of the stress and the major stress that was happening, so it didn't really work out that way. Here we'd moved into this house in Tennessee, and my family was going to come out and visit. And like my siblings were going to come see me, my brother and sister, and I had not seen them in a long time. In fact, I think it was like 13 years that we'd actually seen each other. We hadn't seen each other in that long. And so, like, together. And so, I mean, I am cleaning like a crazy person, when you have to like reach across the tub, and like, and you have your head down, and
All the
like,
nooks and crannies.
yes,
Yeah.
I mean, I was cleaning baseboards. I was like, they're going to stay with us. I wanted to have just a clean house. And I remember standing up. And when I did that, I just had this massive headache, and it was like so bad, and it wouldn't go away. It was like, it would not go away. And then 3 days later, I'm like, I can't move my eyes without feeling like I'm going to throw up. There's something wrong with me. And, go into, well, I called my doctor and I was like, what do I do? And he's like, you need to go have an emergency MRI right now. And I'm just like, what? And, so anyway, I go in, have that done. He calls me right away and he's like, can you meet me at my office? And I'm just like, this doesn't sound like good news. I don't understand what's happening. And so I went there and he said, you had, you have a cyst in your brain and it is stopping the flow of the fluid in your brain from leaving. And the pressure of all of the fluid is causing this massive headache, kind of, like a stroke. All I could hear him say were these things. And in my head, I was thinking, what the heck am I doing with my life? Like, I'm not having any fun at all. All I'm doing, I'm miserable. I'm just miserable. And I was doing all of this to prevent things happening in my life like that, right? Like health conditions coming
Right.
and here they were still here. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go have fun. Like I'm going to do some things different in
I'm
my
so
life.
done with this.
I'm so done with this. I'm 38 years old, 39 years old. And I'm like, I'm going to be 40 and I want to have a good time in my life. My parents have passed away. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? What am I doing? And so that between all those things that led up to it. And that was when I was like, all right, where's Brooks? Where's she at? What does she look like?
Yeah.
What does that look like? So, yeah. And that caused a big rift. So, because I was not submissive at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then Tammy and I picked back up. I don't even know how. I think because I had the same damn phone number forever.
I do think that. I don't know. But this time, right, it was me reaching
Yeah.
out and I'm like, "Hey, I don't know. I had a feeling and I've learned over the years to act on those feelings because they're
Yeah.
not for nothing."
Right.
And I need to see how you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
it was still a very guarded conversation. It
mm-hmm.
was a little, I mean, if we're being honest, it was a little bit of karma.
Yeah.
Because
I love it.
this time
This
you were
time
the one
I
like,
was
what are
guarded.
you doing
Yeah.
here? Like,
Yeah. And
you
she
know,
wouldn't leave me alone either. She was
no.
like, she kept
I'm
calling
like,
me and texting me. And
yeah,
I'm so glad she did because she saved my life. Like I mean, I can see it in my mind, specific days that were like just, oh, I don't even know how I navigated some of that stuff. But I couldn't have if she didn't reach out and say, what's going on, you know? Um, and I honestly believe in those divine, messages. Um, I have a friend that, in that time period, we would go for walks every day. And I was like, and again, like I didn't have very many friends. And I was, that was one of the time periods where I basically had been thrown up into the air and I was like, and I don't know who I am. And so here enters a person that is willing to be my friend and go on walks with me. And she's getting a totally different version of what I was and what I became. And so, she is like listening and helping me. And I honestly believe like an angel was sent to me because I needed that so
mhm,
bad. And then, being able to talk to you and bounce things off of you, like, I just don't know what to do. I don't, and hey, by the way, I've decided to drink alcohol. How do you feel about that? I'm just kind of
it
like,
was exactly that tone. This is what's so funny. This is what's so funny. I
yeah,
literally had just had a fight with my teenage son at the time. Well, he was nearing, adulthood, but I had started to kind of do the same thing. I'm like, this is dumb. Like, I'm a responsible adult. I'm not going to lose my mind. It's fine.
Mhm.
I posted a picture on social media of me and a friend having margaritas out somewhere.
Don't say margarita.
Don't say margarita. Anyways, what time is it? No, just kidding. But but my kids saw it, and I
Oh
was home,
no.
and it wasn't even the same day. It was a different day. He had come up the stairs, and he just gets right in my face. I know you've been drinking. And I was like, I have not been drinking. Like, I
You
had
mean
not
today?
had
Like in the last
it.
several hours?
And he was just like, I know you are. Anyway, we've talked about it since, but it was because of the post, right? He saw the margarita, and he's like, you're such a hypocrite. Blah, blah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, we could talk for hours about all of that. It's fine. But
Yeah.
yeah, so the thing that was synchronous about the timing is
Right.
that I had already kind of left. I
Yeah.
had so many things happening in my life. I'm like, no, all my stuff is really, really heavy, and the only thing I have control over is me.
Mm-hmm.
Where can I take some stress off my plate? This is it. I don't owe these people anything. It's not making my life any better. And that's
Right.
what I did. But
Yeah.
you didn't know that. So
No. Mm-mm.
in that conversation, it was like, and I'm, blah, 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 and I'm like, me too.
Yeah. Because it had been
Pretty funny.
years and it was like life had changed. I remember the big moment for me. Well, first of all, with the fourth baby being pregnant, I had gained so much weight with him and like nothing fit, and I'm not going to go buy a ton of new garment underwear,
Right.
Mormon
Right.
underwear to wear for a few months. And it's hot. I mean, it's just so hot there. And I was just so hot all the time. And I'm like, I don't want to wear them. I just don't care. Like, do you really think that God is going to come down and, zap me because I'm not wearing these because I'm carrying a child? I was just getting
Hmm.
so upset about every part of it because it just didn't make sense to me anymore. And so I just stopped wearing them because I was like, I'm done. And then, um, so after he was born, and we're moving one of 6 times, and I'm not exaggerating, in a very short amount of time, like 9 months after he was born, we moved. And it was me and him and 2 kids, not the oldest one. And I'm like, how am I going to pack this whole freaking house up, and nurse a baby? And then, and so I decided I was going to have coffee. Oh my gosh. Like, what a big moment that was for me. And first of all, I was like, am I even going to like what this tastes like? But I'm like, I had no energy. I had lost like the taste in my taste
Well, it
buds.
was
My
the
hair was
devil's
falling.
water.
It was,
The devil's water. Don't
but
drink that.
I'm like, I'm going to either need several different types of medications, to get me up and down because I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to have any energy to do anything or sleep. Or I'm just going to have some coffee. I'm just going to
Mhm.
I'm going to have a coffee. It's going to give me a little lift and I'm going to go do my things, and that's kind of what I did. And then I was like, man, I'm doing this. And, that's the gateway drug to all the rest of them. You start that coffee stuff and that's it. You're out there,
I mean,
So
it's true because you just start questioning, like, wow, this is really great. Is everything else going to be as great as
yeah,
this?
yeah, yeah. So that's why I was like, okay, whatever. But, what else happened was the medical part happened for me. And so that, wasn't like I just zoomed right into it. I really didn't. And still didn't try a lot of things, honestly, for a really long time, or still haven't, and nor do I want to. But it was just kind of like, I think I'm gonna, peace out. I'm good. Like I don't need to do all of this anymore. Um, I didn't want to scream in everyone's face and tell them it's not true. I didn't feel like I had to really say anything to anyone. I was just kind of like, this is just going to be my life now. I don't know. Some people feel like they really have to go in and say, I'm done. Take me off the list. I never want to see her freaking faces anymore, and like they get really mad and they say things. And I
Right.
just didn't feel like I needed to do that. I was just like, I'm just going to fizzle out. Constantly messing with my hair. Sorry. It's a thing. But and reconnecting with you, it was like I had gotten to the point where I was very comfortable with myself. And so I was kind of like, well, if you want to deal with this new Brooks, you can, but let me just tell you, this is where I'm at. And then, that took days of then you telling me where you're at and that we could still really be really good friends. Um, and I was just so grateful that, first of all, that you came back to me and let me back in because I really needed you really bad. And also that 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 you didn't judge me, and that your life had evolved in a way that that you're in a way that we were kind of still on the same road progressing that way, and that your ex-husband hadn't passed away, because that was like one of my you said that to me, and I just remember thinking, I don't know, I can't take one more person dying on me, because it
Right.
was like, yeah, it was like it wasn't just my parents, it was like then this person and then this person and these two people are getting divorced and then this other person's getting divorced, and it was like everybody was falling apart, and I would just like I couldn't do it, I couldn't function. And so anyway, yeah, what was your walk away like?
Well, because of everything that we were experiencing, I felt lost. You know, I don't have the closeness of family relationships that I would have liked. The illness that we were dealing with, it was hard. It was hard on him. It was hard on me. It was hard on our kids. But I think the thing that really did it for me was the fact that we're told in the church, this is your church family. People are going to be here for you. You can rely on us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that. In fact, it was the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it was literally like people didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to treat us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Suddenly, we were the lepers, right? Like, it's just people are not going to come around because they're so uncomfortable with themselves. This is what I know now, but it's not how I
Sure.
viewed it at the time. But they were so uncomfortable with themselves, not knowing what to say, knowing that this is so devastatingly hard, and they have no frame of reference to say anything or do anything actually helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So they end up doing nothing, absolutely nothing at all. And I think in those moments, had somebody been brave enough to actually just go, I don't know what to say or do, but I see that you're hurting and I'll be here.
Mm-hmm.
People will do let me know if you need anything. Am I going
Right.
to do that? No, I'm not. I'm not going to let you know that I need anything, because I don't even know from day to day what I need. I just need this all not to be happening, and you
Right.
can't do anything about that. So my exit was just, I had so many heavy things. I literally needed to put something down, and this was the thing that made the most sense, because it was causing me the most stress and doing the least amount for my mental health,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like a constant failure. I felt like, much like you did. It was like I've been doing all of these things. I go to church, I pay my tithing, I follow the rules, and I'm active, and I'm actively living a life of service and serving not only my own family, but other people, and as many people as I could.
Mm-hmm.
But my life was literally being ripped apart and falling apart underneath my feet, and it didn't make any sense based on what I had been taught.
Mm-hmm.
And I could rationalize, I could say, okay, I understand the uses of adversity. I understand opposition in all things. I get that.
Right.
But the amount of very heavy, really life-changing, difficult things that had come my way since 2007 forward,
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot.
It was a lot.
And
Yeah.
a lot of people would have broken
Mm-hmm.
with just one of those things.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because I'm some kind of superhuman. I'm absolutely not. I feel like I had opportunities in my life to do it differently, and 2007 was one of those, and I didn't see it then.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I thought that packing up and moving and doing what we did, was the answer. And really what the answer was some of the things that it's taken me this long to learn that I needed to pour into myself.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to serve myself and love myself as much or more than I was doing for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't see it because I had been taught and conditioned that I didn't matter. I needed to serve and do all of these things for everybody else, and then I would have all these blessings. That wasn't adding up. That wasn't working.
Right.
That's not how it ended up. What ended up was I was so consumed with making sure that everybody else in the family was okay that I was not okay. And at that time, I didn't have a partner who could show up for me because he couldn't even show up for himself. He was sick.
Right.
And then everything that came with that, right? Like I didn't have the church family that was promised. I didn't
Right.
have the people that were going to show up. I had other people that absolutely showed up for me. But it wasn't anybody, it wasn't anybody from my Mormon church family.
Right.
And, since then I've had people say, well, if you had told me what, if you had told me,
Yeah.
because again, these aren't the things that you put in your social media posts, right? I'm not going to put the
No.
most
Mm-mm.
dark, difficult things on social media. And so anyway, I distanced myself and came to the conclusion through a really interesting way that this was it. I needed to stop having these expectations, and I needed to pour into myself and have expectations of just me
Mm-hmm.
and start there. And it was a journey, and I just went, okay, so how do I do that? I just started asking the question, okay, how do I do that? One of my mentors, she would just say some things to me, and the way that this relationship has been with her, like she would say something to me, it pissed me off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why is she saying that to me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then I would take a step back and go, but God dang, she's right. Like, so
Okay.
Katie is a mentor of mine that I've known since I lived in Cheyenne. So I've known her roughly 14 years now.
Okay.
She's about the same age as my mom. And she's just one of the most profoundly wise, genuine, authentic women I've ever known. I
Yeah.
love her dearly. But, when everything kind of started happening, she was the one that was telling me, you need to tell your kids. You have to stop living in your illusion that you can protect them from pain.
Mm-hmm.
I'd get so wound up about things because that's just how I functioned. She sat at my kitchen table one day and said to me, "Do you even relax?" And I'm like, "I don't really know what that means." And she's like, "Do you do any deep breathing? Because it doesn't seem like it." And I just remember being so annoyed, like, and then I stopped and I went, okay. And it was right about this same time, just a couple years before, I had gotten reconnected with Dorothy. So Dorothy is another wonderful sister mentor of mine. She used to babysit me when I was 10. She moved away, moved to the Pacific Northwest, and through this whole thing that I've learned is not random.
Yeah.
We moved to Wyoming, and cousins of Dorothy moved to the same town, and we ended up at church, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and so Dorothy and I, through these other people, got reconnected after decades and decades of not talking to or seeing each other. And she, kind of the same thing, this is how my soul tribe has just appeared and shown up in my life. And so, we connected and we talk, and after Katie had said, "You don't know how to," she didn't say it this way, but that's how I heard it in my head. "You don't know how to relax. You need to learn how to breathe."
Yeah.
I remember having a phone call with Dorothy, and she said, "Let me take you through this visualization." And I'm like, "Oh my God, like there's one more woo-woo thing. Like this isn't my thing." In fact, I used to be pretty vocal about, like, I'm not joining a drum circle. Like, I'm not doing that,
Yeah. And now
And now I'd be like, drum circle
circles.
seems kind of cool. Like, maybe we could, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know I don't know how well I'd do with that, but I'd participate. I wouldn't be so rude about it.
Yeah. Less
But
rude
anyway, it is, I know, it's rude.
these days.
It is rude. But, I mean, I've been criticized. I've been criticized a lot over the last few years by different people that I've come in contact with for choices that I felt like I needed to make for myself. And I mean, I'll say it for the record right now, whether people know me or they don't know me. This is the best version of me that I've ever been. And I know that I'm going to continue to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And if you knew a different version of me, then, that's great. This is where I'm at now. And I had to progress. I had lessons I had to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my journey. I try not to judge people for their journey.
Right.
And I find it really fascinating how many people judge me for mine.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, I'm not living the lifestyle or doing the things that they think I should be doing. But, when I have other people who are willing to teach me and give me reasons to learn new ways of taking care of myself or things that might serve me better, I feel like I would be a hypocrite if I just said no to all of that.
Right.
And didn't explore it. So I was just kind of open. Like, I threw this other thing away that wasn't working well, but I didn't know what I was going toward. I was just like, show me how to do this, because I have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then, anybody who's gone through any kind of faith crisis or spiritual awakening knows what that is. And another friend of mine, for my birthday, gave me a gift certificate for massage and Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know how I felt about that, because all I had heard about Reiki, again, I'm like, this just woo-woo stuff. I don't know what to do with it.
Right.
So I went and had the massage and had the Reiki, and I had this profoundly spiritual experience that I wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, she was a stranger to me. She didn't know me. We just met. And, you know, it was my first visit, and she said things to me about my gifts, about the way that, I have the ability to heal myself and others, and I needed to really take some time. And she's telling me that I have all of these gifts, and I'm laying on the table, and I'm having this, I can't even say it's an existential crisis. It's like an existential awareness of, I know these things about myself, and I have purposely forgotten or put them away.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went, oh. And it was like one by one, I was laying there as she's, giving me my massage and talking to me or whatever. I'm having one recall after another of times when I knew things without knowing them.
Right.
When I had intuition about something, and didn't follow through with it, or,
Mm-hmm.
just one thing after another. And I went, wow, this is something. And because it wasn't so much of because of the things that she said, it was because of what I felt happening
Mm-hmm.
inside of me, inside my body.
Right.
So I went home and I immediately started researching Reiki. I'm like, I need to know what this is.
Right.
What happened to me? What did I just sign myself up for? But it was the thing that kind of gave me a direction
Mm-hmm.
that felt very authentic to the path that I was on, because I knew that I was being guided to find a way to heal myself, find a way to be more self-reliant and not need validation outside of myself, being on a journey of self-love and acceptance and all of those things,
Mm-hmm.
and still be who I am at my core. Um,
Right. Be more yourself at your core. Yeah.
yeah, and not playing small to make other people comfortable,
Right.
right? Not keeping, not holding back from saying the things that I think or feel because somebody else is going to disagree with me or not understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was kind of it. I mean, for me, the kids had already decided a long time ago that they didn't want to be part
Mm-hmm.
of the church, didn't want to go, didn't, you know,
Right.
everybody was just kind of doing it for me at some point.
Yeah.
And I just went, this is silly. This is just, we need to just stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's super interesting. Obviously, divine timing, serendipitous, right? Like the time that how we went apart, and then when we came back, where our stories met again, because at that point, I had that experience that I explain in a different episode, and you can read all about it in the book. That I lost my mom, had that really horrible morning, and went out on the back porch and could see all of the cotton field. And then she appeared to me, and as her spiritual self, and everything that happened in that moment completely changed my life. It was like I had that, I had the health crisis, which, I know when our physical bodies are hurting that way and have that, it's like trying to get your attention. All those things had happened. And then you reached out to me, and I was at a point where I really was trying to be more myself without, I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. I didn't want to make anyone, I didn't want to poke the bear. It's
Right.
like I was just trying to be myself and to love my kids and figure out how I could continue into this relationship without, just totally decimating it, without, being the cause. I didn't want to be, but I wanted to be myself. And I think I definitely have expressed it before, but at that point, I kept seeing a vision of me, being on top of the water, just barely paddling, keeping my head above water, and my ankle is tied to an anchor that's dragging on the ground. And I so wanted to progress. I wanted to learn more. I had my ex sister-in-law. Now at that point, she said, I've been listening to Super Soul Sunday every Sunday. And I'm like, what's that? And it was with Oprah. And then at that point, she was having, all of these, spiritually awakened people on her
Mm-hmm.
show. And she's like, well, first of all, you have to start with Brene Brown. And I was like, okay, cool. I know that, let's go listen to that. But then it was like, I could not stop. And so of course, I would go on a walk every day for an hour and I would turn that on. And that was my church, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like, and then I would go read the book, and then I would go, and during all of that time, I'm having all of these other interactions where, like, my mom is coming to me. I'm seeing her in dreams. She's, I'm seeing her and like hearing her. And that's just not supposed to happen, and according to the Mormon Church, right? Like, we're not supposed to be speaking to our ancestors, people who
Right.
have passed on. Like, that's not normal. And so I'm like, I'm not normal and I'm not part of this. Like, this just is not working for me. I don't fit in it anymore. And so there was a huge pull away. And like I said, just kind of fizzled out. And then my kids were not really sure how they felt about that. Um, they weren't like, they weren't not, they weren't like they weren't super active, but they weren't not active either. So it was kind of like, I
Yeah.
was like, well, I'll continue to support you any way you want, but I'm not there. So I just can't do it. And so anyway, I think at that point, you and I started talking about Reiki. You definitely introduced me to that. I didn't know what the word was. I was like, can you say it like 4 more times so maybe I can get it in my head? And so, yeah, so I just started on the journey too. And you're like, here, go listen to this. Here, go listen to that. Go do that. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even know anything. Like, I was ready to,
Mm-hmm.
because I was already, opening that door, like you said, being open to the idea that I could be this very strong and powerful and spiritual being myself, independent of other people and other
Right.
beings and other authorities. And what would that look like? And how could I, and again, so many people are like, oh, you left the church so you could go sin. You left the church because you want to do things
Wanted to
that are,
drink margaritas.
yeah, we want to have margaritas, like that. I didn't go straight to margaritas. Okay. There were some other things like coffee in there. And, but also just me trying to find myself. And, sometimes the pendulum swung all the way to the other way, but I'm definitely in the center now. And better for it,
Yeah.
and you said something else too. I think the more that, and I feel this with every ounce of my being, the more that you love yourself and the more you find yourself and the more compassion you find for yourself, the grace that you allow to be there for yourself, you have that for other people. And so when someone else would come in and they would try to judge me, oh boy, it was like one of the things that would, and it still does, it just kind of drives me nuts, because I'm thinking, you have no idea what I have been through, but not that, we've all been through shit. Like,
Right.
I
Everybody
told,
has a sad story.
yes. And I remember I was in the car one day with the kids, and I'm grieving heavy. I'm hard, like, it's hardcore. And I'm like, they're like, how's it going, mom? And I'm just like, life is a pile of shit, guys. Life is a pile of shit. And you just have to dig through the shit and find the joy. And I remember them being like, oh, this is a big one. Mom's really on one
Yeah.
right now. But it's the truth. And so you and I, there's everybody out there has their thing, right? But it's what we do with it, and what I have done with it I'm happier than I've ever been. Like you said, this is the best version of me. And I'm so excited to continue to peel back the layers, even though sometimes it hurts. It
Mm-hmm.
hurts really bad, but then there's growth there. And then I'm just so grateful. And I'm grateful to have, a friend like you to go through it with, and, calling in the other people and our other soul tribe people and experiences to allow us to be those people that we want to be. And so I wouldn't change any of it. Maybe I would have, bypassed a few things or gone through it a little faster in some areas.
Right?
But I would,
Let's just
yeah.
get right to it.
Can we just, yeah.
I can say I would have done this had I known. I would have done this like 2007 at least.
I know, right? I know. And I think the funny thing is that even like the podcast, even when we were in Alaska, I mean, we didn't really know what podcasts were at that point, but
So funny you say that. I had the
shortly,
exact same thought this morning.
yeah, shortly after that, I remember talking about it and being like, we should do a podcast. And I want to talk about all these things. The funny thing is that we hadn't even gone through the things yet. Like we're funny as hell. I mean, like we're super fun to be with. And like we say some funny stuff, but like, and especially when we're real, we're not really
Yeah.
holding back, worried about what someone else might think. But, but we didn't have we hadn't come to this part yet where we were
Right.
like, I am this best version of myself, and how do we help other people? We had done a ton between then and now, which is super short amount of time, not even 10 years, right? I mean, and that
Mm-hmm.
sounds like a lot of time, but when you think of all the things that have happened in that amount of time, we've done a lot of work to get here. And there was something else I was going to say too, but yeah,
Especially over the last couple of years where, and I know I've watched you do it too. Life has changed. We've both been divorced. You're now remarried. I'm navigating that still,
yeah,
but going through old patterns and trying to figure out what this is going to look like for me now. The bar is high. Like whoever is coming into my life next has to like who do they compete with? They compete with Brooks and Misty and Katie and Dorothy. That's who they compete with.
right.
They don't
Well,
need to be
and
worried about other men. They need to be worried about my best friend.
right.
Like,
Well, and yourself, right? I mean, it's like I say it all the
yeah,
time. It's like when you love yourself so much, you know that you will never allow someone else to treat you less than that. And when people treat you less than that, you got to start, yeah, whoa, this is not okay. Now, I'm going to give you a half a second to level up. You're going to level up, you know. Okay,
yeah.
then you got to go if you can't.
Because otherwise, right? Access is a privilege.
Yes. Yeah.
And I take it that way. I feel like my access to you is a privilege. My access to,
Yes.
other people
You,
that are close, I feel like it's a privilege.
for sure.
And I know you feel that way too, right? Like
Hmm.
if I were to just suddenly be like, I'm out, peace out, you'd be like, what
Yeah.
the heck? What happened? It wouldn't be okay. Now, somebody who doesn't know me, not as big of a deal,
Right.
right? But this kind of access is a privilege, and I it's taken me this long to work through those pieces that I was conditioned, some because of the church, some because of the way I grew up. I can sit and write the list about all the reasons why. But at the core, when I think about it, if it is so easy for me to 1,000,000,000% fall in love with my children and love them and not judge them and just be in awe and adore them and cherish them, why do I not do that for myself.
Yeah,
Right? Like the features that they have, the way that they think, the way that they're interacting in the world, some of that is because of me,
for sure.
but it took me a while to recognize, because of trauma and some of those other things, that if I can recognize it so easily in my children, why can't I just as easily recognize it and give it to myself? And that is
Yeah.
enough.
Yes.
And
Well,
I'm finally here, but it took all of this, right, to
yeah,
go, that's silly. Just leave that trash behind. Don't pick that up
right.
and carry it. It's not yours.
Yeah. Well, the conditioning happens over such a slow amount of time. It's the story of the frog, right? Where you put it in
Yeah.
a pot of cold water and you slowly turn up the temperature. It's not going to jump out. You put it in the boiling water, it jump right out, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
And we slowly get broken down. We come into this life just, probably, a little tiny traumatized just from, whatever mom was going through being pregnant, or just birth itself or whatever. But compare that trauma compared to what happens over the next, 8 to 12 years of our life, it slowly shows us that, okay, it can possibly tell you that you're not good enough, or you're not going to get the attention you need when you need it. You're not going to have support, right? And then when
Right.
you continue that cycle into marriage that confirms it over and over and over and beats you down and tells you no, or, it doesn't even have to be marriage. It can be just relationships, right? That
Yeah,
you're
because
not
no
good
matter
enough.
what you do, if you're not the girl, right, and you keep trying to be,
Yeah.
no matter
You're
what, it's never going to be enough. But it's not always you.
right. and and so just to say, like, thinking that it was an impossible situation to change, and then to change it, and then to be on the other side of it, I know it can
Hmm.
happen, and I know that there's happiness and joy out there. And it all stemmed from, some big wake up calls, whether it was, losing people that we love, or, physical stuff happening to our physical bodies, or,
Hmm.
I mean, life is short. And I just decided that I was going to be happy, and, go be happy. Like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Why are we,
Yeah.
and then what would agitate me the most, like, I would just feel so, is like, we're miserable, and then we would go somewhere else where we had to put the face on and be happy. And I'm like, you're good to do that there, but then we go home and it's miserable. And I'm not okay with that anymore. I'm not okay with being fake. I'm not okay with being a phony. I have to be real. It was just like coming, like peeling back the layers, saying, be
Hmm.
real, be real. And I'm like, I don't know how to contain that. And I knew that I was going to lose people along the way. And I knew that people were not, that was not going to set well with them, like, I just
Yeah.
knew that. And it's terrifying. And leaving the church, it was both, right? There were two things happening at once. It was a relief, it was a freedom, but it was also terrifying. And it was
Yeah.
because part of my identity was wrapped up in that. And if I don't believe this, what do I believe? And what you believe is kind of a science project, and it's like, sometimes you don't know what it is. You have to look for it, you have to try it out, you have to feel it, and sometimes, the science project gets left in the refrigerator and gets moldy. It's like, sometimes it's like, this didn't work out very well. And so I'm going to 360 or 180 it and go the other way, and try something new. And so, yeah. And that's hard to do at 40 something years old, and
Well, and I'm just a little bit older than you, and so I mean, it's hard, right? Like, I just had my 52nd birthday, and I
mm,
didn't see myself single in my 50s. I saw myself and my partner being grandparents and doing those things, and that I get to be a grandparent, and I'm so grateful. that it isn't at all what I had pictured or what I had planned.
Right.
And I think, going back to what you just said about the science project, when you've had a faith crisis, when you're awakening to something different and you're changing your entire life. Like, I had people ask me, what do you believe? What's your religion? What do you practice?
Yeah, for sure.
And having to explain that to somebody who doesn't know you, doesn't know what you've been through, doesn't understand your past,
Mm-hmm.
really has no understanding of what you're doing right now, to really explain that is difficult.
Yeah, it
And
is.
again, like, that's where I've had some persecution
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know. I mean, I could say I don't know. Here's what I did before, but I don't know what this looks like, because this is what I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about these things. I don't know if this is something that I'm going to hold on to and do forever.
Right.
I know what's working right now. And I think when you talk about it being terrifying, it with Christianity, there's this roadmap called the Bible, right? And there are these things that are expected, and as long as you do like, you kind of have this understanding, right? Even if
Mm-hmm.
everybody's doing it a little bit differently, the understanding of how people are practicing their religion is widely understood.
Mm-hmm.
How I'm practicing and what I'm doing to better myself or my life or get closer to spirit or being more open to that direction and guidance for myself is not as widely understood. And so therefore a lot of times it's feared or
Right.
persecuted. Like, I'm doing something in a sinful way because I'm not doing it the same way as my Christian friends
Sure.
or my Muslim friends or my Jewish friends or whoever, right? So at the end of that day, I'm saying to anybody who's saying, I think spirituality or energy work or all this is woo woo. Me too. I was hugely skeptical until it literally started happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I didn't say I asked for this. I said I was open. I was open to whatever I needed to show me how to get from where I was to where I want to be.
Right.
And this is what showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we have to give ourselves permission to be our own authority. And that's something very different than we learned in the Mormon Church or really even in Christianity.
Yes.
We have to give ourselves permission to be our own authority
Yes.
and to know what's best for us. That doesn't mean we can't be in the service of other people. That doesn't mean that we can't do all of the Christ-like things that people associate to good people.
Yes.
It just means that I'm doing it in a way that feels good and authentic to me, where I'm my own authority and I can get revelation for myself. I can
Mm-hmm.
use my own intuition and act on it. I don't have to ask somebody's permission first,
Right.
right? Like, I'm not waiting for some big thing to come to me or another man, woman, person to say, oh, it's okay if you do XYZ.
Right.
So I think it's difficult for some of us to explain when the journey isn't linear and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make sense to everybody else. It doesn't have to. Just be a good person,
Right.
right? And like you said, if you're choosing happiness and you're not hurting anybody else and your
Right.
happiness isn't based on bringing other people down or using other people or abusing other people,
Right.
right? If
Yeah.
your main tenets are being authentic, having gratitude, choosing happiness, love,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think even Jesus himself is going to have a problem with any of that.
Yeah. No.
As much as I learned about, if what I learned about Jesus was true.
Right. Yeah. And I've come to that conclusion a lot. I think coming here to Tennessee in the Bible Belt where people, I would say it's an extremely high percentage of people are, Christian based, which I mean, I still consider myself, um, a believer. It's just, I don't live my life, going to church every Sunday. And but I live a very Christ-like life, but, especially with what I do on a daily basis where,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing massive, like, energy work, I'm doing readings, but, my life is totally different now. But I do get people ask me, they're worried that I'm going to somehow change their belief system in, 60 minutes or something. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's not my intent at all. My intention is that I'm, trying to connect to love and light, which I believe is source, God, something bigger than us. I don't want to act like I know anything more or less, right? Like I
Right.
know, I don't know it all. I just know that there is something, and I always have. And that definitely is what led me to this path. And then, yeah, but I do have people that ask me a lot, you know, about my religious beliefs or my spiritual beliefs. And,
Mm-hmm.
I also kind of think, whoa, that's really bold. But I'm up for it. You want to ask, then you ready for the answer, or,
Right.
yeah. So, and, I'm just trying to help and,
Me too.
yeah. And hold space for people. Cause I know what it's like to not be able to hold space as we've talked about, through these last little bit of episodes together. And so having someone else be able to hold the space for you so that you could, listen and figure out the messages and what's supposed to happen next is so important. And, so yeah, I mean, Tammy and I have both been through faith crisis, religious trauma or, transition, however you want to say it, lost people along the way, got divorced, um,
Had
put down
health
a
crises.
health crisis. Yes. Our bodies have said, hey, something's really wrong. Make a
Wake
change.
up.
Wake up. Yeah. Raising kids, stay at home mom to full time working, that kind of
Having
a
our own
thing.
businesses.
Having our own businesses. Yeah. And then, after divorce, trying to date, trying to figure out what we do believe, what is our story, who are we, who am I, right? Like this is a
Mm-hmm.
massive question that we're asking, and trying to find our person, and to continue forward and authentic, as more authentic than we've ever been, and, living the life that, I just recently said it, like, live the life you don't want to take a vacation from, like,
Yes.
this is, your life is so fulfilling and going in the path that you have chosen and deserve. And so, I think we're both working on that, constantly manifesting, and,
Yep.
grateful for each other, and also here if you need, guidance, because we both do somewhat of the same thing through coaching, energy work. She has sound therapy and, brain training, and I do the emotion code, and, have access to, sound healing and body work. So,
And
yeah,
we
it's,
can both do things virtually, which is awesome.
yes. I mean, not the body work, but
Well,
yes.
some of it. Some of the things that we do, we
Yeah.
can do virtually.
Yeah. But, this has been good. And, I think we got through a lot. So, we will do it again soon and pick up
Okay.
and keep going. So
Sounds good.
I love you. I will
I
talk to
love
you soon.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a good day.
Okay. You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye.